Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Future Ready with Bryce Barrows, the podcast that is getting you ready in your career for the changes AI is bringing. It is going to make you indispensable once you learn how to be the AI expert in your area of expertise and department. And once again, in the long run, once AI really starts taking jobs. Last week in episode 1, we laid the groundwork. We walked through the 4 phases of career planning. They were self-assessment, exploration, decision-making, and finally, action. And we also introduced the idea that the half-life of a professional skill has shrunk to roughly 5 years. Every 5 years, about half of what makes you marketable expires. But I'm being straight with you. That 5-year window is starting to look like a luxury. We no longer have what I'm seeing right now in early 2026 tells me that we're moving faster than that framework anticipated. So today's episode is different. Today is not theory. Today is a rapid response session. I'm also going to share a story I've never fully told on a public platform before. It will explain why the current moment in AI is unlike anything that we've seen. And then I'm going to give you a practical 4-pillar blueprint that you can start executing this week. So let's get into it. Part 1, the human cost of the shell game. Before we talk about the future, I need to give you some context. And this context is about where I'm coming from. You see, I spent over 28 years in the corporate world. Much of that was inside major global companies. And a significant portion of my career was spent in the room where the hardest workforce decisions were made. These were mergers, acquisitions, restructuring, and synergies that in almost every case meant one thing, and that one thing was fewer people. You see, downsizings were part of my life. For a long time, I didn't keep count. It was just part of the job. You deliver that deadly message, sorry, but we have to let you go. And you handle it like any process. You move on to the next one and the next one. And that's how the system works. But there was a moment that changed my perspective permanently. I was in the middle of a large-scale restructure, and I was delivering a termination notice to a very senior executive. Now, this man had given decades of his life to the organization. He was what I would call a knower. You see, he believed his tenure, his title, and the letters after his name were his armor. He believed that if he just did his job and kept his head down, the system would take care of him. When I gave him the news, he didn't argue. He didn't get angry. But what came next shocked me. He broke down and started crying right there in front of me. And that hit me in a way I still can't fully describe. It stripped away all the corporate jargon that I had in my head. Right sizing, strategic realignment. And behind every one of those words, I realized something. That there was a person with debts, a family, a mother with a heart condition, a sister with special needs, with an identity built around a job that just disappeared. From that moment on, I started counting. Every conversation, every letter, every person who thought that their career was safe until it wasn't. I counted. I not only counted it, I felt it. I felt their pain, their hurt, their humiliation, and that question in their head that went, why me? You see, that count eventually reached 2,700 people. And here's what I noticed across those 2,700 conversations that I had with these people. The people who were most devastated weren't the ones who lacked talent. Unfortunately, they were the ones that had stopped learning. They had become experts in a version of the world that no longer existed. They were knowers in a world that had shifted to favor learners. Was that the end? No. You see, eventually, during a significant corporate acquisition, the organization that I was working for came back to me and asked me for another round of cuts. And that was the moment I put up my hands and I walked away. I remember coming home that night, and excuse the words, but I told my wife, I can't do this shit anymore. I couldn't keep being part of a system that waited until the very last second, until the damage was already done, to tell people that they were expendable. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in today. I'm telling you this story because what I saw happen to those 2,700 people, and of course that number's probably more, as I only began counting this figure after the senior executives incident. But I realized that over the course of decades, those terminations were nothing. You see, what is about to happen now in 2026 and the future will be at a scale and speed that most people are not prepared for. That's the worst part. Oh, and by the way, the corporate playbook, it hasn't changed. They're still using the same shell game that they used previously. Words like optimization and efficiency, right up till that moment that they hand that letter to the person that has to be let go. And the sad part is that I've seen this even recently with companies like Google and IBM. So my goal with this podcast is simple. I want to be the person I wish those 2,700 people had in their corner before it was too late. Part 2. The 2026 intelligence explosion. Okay, so let me set the scene for why I'm treating this as a break glass moment. What's a break glass? You know, when there's an emergency and you break the glass so the alarm goes off? Well, it was February 12th, 2026, just a couple of weeks back. My younger brother shared an article with me that brought back all those memories in an instant, those employment terminations. And what I envisioned was even worse. You see, my brother shared with me an article written by an AI expert called Matt Schumer. This article was scary. By the way, I will add the article in the show notes. Now, in this article, Matt compared February 5th, 2026 to February 2000, when the virus came and rewrote the rules of the world. His comparison to what is to become is scary if he compares it to the time of the virus. Now, I think you all know what virus I'm talking about. For some reason, YouTube has some weird algorithm thing that penalizes people when you mention its name. And I want to make sure that this video gains traction, and so I'm not using the name. But coming back, he pointed to two major releases of ChatGPT and Claude AI that came out on February 5th, 2026. This was the release of GPT 5.3 and Claude's Opus 4.6. These were not minor upgrades. These systems were now instrumental in creating themselves. Yes, I will repeat that. They are now creating themselves, writing the code to upgrade themselves. Like the virus that changed our lives, what he was trying to show was to compare moments with artificial intelligence, but the only difference is that this new disruption, it isn't biological, it's digital. And unfortunately, it doesn't have a peak. It just keeps compounding. So here's what happened in just the last few months. The latest generation of frontier AI models we're talking about, systems from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and others. They've all crossed a threshold that changes the conversation entirely. You see, these models are being used in their own development process. OpenAI has publicly confirmed that their latest system helped debug the code and manage the development pipeline that brought those same systems into existence. That is a feedback loop. That is a system improving a system that improves itself. Let me repeat that slowly. That is a system improving the system that improves itself. Now, I know that sounds insignificant. So let me give you a concrete metric that will make this feel more real. There's a research organization called MITRE, which stands for Model Evaluation and Threat Research. What this organization does is that it researches AI systems that can work autonomously on real-world professional tasks. So not toy problems, not trivia, actual end-to-end work tasks. About a year ago, the frontier models could only handle roughly 10 minutes of continuous autonomous work, meaning it would only work for 10 minutes on its own before we had to get involved and before it went off the rails. It then went on to 1 hour, and now the new benchmarks are showing that the system can complete tasks that would have taken a skilled human being, or let's put it this way, a skilled human professional around 5 hours. So it can move, or it can carry on working for 5 hours on its own without us getting involved. But you want to know the scary part? The recent updates that just came out, they were not part of these benchmarks. So yeah, it is scary. Another scary thing is that the capability is roughly doubling every 4 months. Every 4 months. I want you to sit with those numbers for a second. Rewind back to the part and hear it again. I want you to let it sink in, because the math is very clear. If that trajectory holds, and every indicator suggests it will, we're looking at AI systems capable of executing full-day professional workflows within the next year or two. Full day's work. Now, this is not some distant future. This is within the planning horizons that we take for our next career move. And here's the part that matters most for your career specifically. So listen carefully. The task AI handles best are the tasks most knowledge workers spend the majority of their day doing. What does this mean? If your work involves sitting in front of a screen, reading documents, writing reports, analyzing data, summarizing meetings, drafting communication, well, AI is no longer a helpful assistant sitting in the corner. It is becoming a direct substitute for the work that you do. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying your job is going to disappear tomorrow. I'm not that person who likes to cry wolf. What I'm saying is that the value of those individual tasks is collapsing. If AI can draft a memo in 30 seconds, the person who only knows how to draft memos is definitely in serious trouble. But the person who can take that AI drafted memo apply judgment, understand the politics, makes the strategic calls. That person just got 10 times more productive. You see, this is the fork in the road. Same technology, two completely different outcomes, depending on how you respond. You see, what I'm trying to say is this. Don't get into the doom and gloom of our current situation. I'm sure that time will come. As I love saying, the genie is out of the bottle and there's no way of getting it back in. But we can use the genie while we can, can't we? What I mean is that if we can use the technology to our advantage, why not? And that is why I wanted to touch on this topic in this episode. I'm not negating what the article says. Things will happen, but why not take advantage while we can? It's either we lie down in one corner and let things happen, or we fight and take advantage while we can, and also see if we can build it for a long-term future. So you can either complain, sit in a corner and sulk, or you use the power of AI to get ahead. Part 3, the rapid response blueprint. Okay, let's get into the architecture. This is what I call the rapid response blueprint. It will give you the ammunition to fight the coming onslaught of AI. It is similar to the 4 pillars I mentioned for career planning, but this is just a little different. But the good part is that you can start implementing it not in the next quarter, but within this week. Let's talk about them. Pillar number 1, the cognitive audit. The first thing I need you to do is understand where you actually spend your time in the office, not where you think you spend it. So where you actually spend it. Just like companies have audits, you will need to audit what you do and where you can change things so that you save yourself from any changes that are coming in the future. So here's the exercise. Take out a sheet of paper or open a blank Excel sheet and make 3 columns. Your first column is your job description. Write down all the requirements that are expected of you in your role, what you were technically hired for. What does your organization expect you to deliver? Column number 2 is your actual daily activity. Now, for 1 week, I want you to track how you spend your time, and I want you to be brutally honest. How many hours do you spend in meetings? How many hours you spend on email? How much time goes into formatting slides, cleaning out data, writing first drafts, or chasing approvals? That will be column 2. Column 3 is your audit column. Go through every entry of column 2 and ask yourself one question. Can I describe this task clearly enough that a machine could do it? In other words, if you input this into ChatGPT, will it be able to deliver? And if the answer is yes, if you can write a clear set of instructions that would allow an AI to complete the task, mark it out. Now, when most people do this, and when they do it honestly, they find that 40 to 60% of their daily work falls into this third column. So column 3 is the territory that AI is coming for first. It's not your job title, not your years of experience. It's the task level work. So here's the strategic move. You need to shift your time and attention towards column 1. The outcomes, the strategic decisions, the judgment calls. Use AI to handle all the mechanical work in column 2 so that you can double your investment in things that a machine cannot replicate. And what they cannot replicate are context, relationships, creative problem solving, and leadership. If you do this audit and realize that almost everything you do could be described to a machine, that is not a reason to panic. What I mean to say is that AI can do exactly everything you're doing. Still, do not panic. This is a signal to you to pivot quickly and deliberately. The second pillar is pro-grade immersion. Now, the second pillar is about how you engage with these tools. And I see the same mistake being made today that I have seen during the internet boom, during the mobile revolution, and during practically every other technology shift of the last 3 decades. You see, people underestimate the technology because they only experienced the diluted version. A funny story, I was on a call when management at Nokia said that they were in control and that they made phones that everybody wanted. They went as far as saying that we make phones, not fruit. They were technically taking a jab at Apple and BlackBerry. Ultimately, it was the fruit that took them out of business. You see, the reason for telling you the story is that we always underestimate technology. When it comes to AI, we're doing the same thing. If you're using the free version of ChatGPT, or you've played around with a couple of chatbots for 5 minutes and decided it's not that impressive, you are technically evaluating the capability of a sports car by looking at a bicycle. You see, the free versions of these tools are deliberately limited. They are kept limited because they are just demos. It's not what the technology actually does at full capacity. You see, you will need to invest in yourself $20 a month, and that's a couple of cups of coffee. But for that, you're going to get access to the frontier models of these systems. These are the same systems that are being used by law firms, consulting firms, and research institutions right now. And I'm not talking about casual use. I'm talking about professional immersion. In the article that my brother shared with me, the one I was talking about, Schumer mentions how some managing partners at a major law firm reached out to him. And they told him that they were spending hours every day working with these models because they've seen what's coming. They see the associate in a box scenario. They know that a first-year associate billing $400 an hour to review documents is now competing with a system that does the same work in minutes and for pennies. So here's what I want you to do. Take a real work problem, not a test, not a toy question, and throw it at this frontier model, the one that you paid for. Give it a 50-page contract and ask it to identify risk clauses. Give it a messy quarterly data set and ask it to surface 3 insights that your manager would want to hear about. Or give it your team's last strategy document and ask it to poke holes in it. Push it until it fails. Now, why I'm saying push it until it fails is because understanding where these systems break is just as important as understanding where they work. That's the knowledge your employer will pay for. Knowing when to trust a machine and when to override it. Pillar 3, workflow synthesis. Pillar 3 is where you go from being a user to being a leader. Here's the idea. I don't want you to just use AI in isolation. I want you to become the person in your organization who can redesign a workflow around these tools. Now, picture this. You walk into your next team meeting and you say, I used AI to complete the preliminary analysis on this project. And it took me 2 hours instead of 3 days. And here are the results. But apart from the results, here is the strategic decision that I, not AI, believe we need to make because of what the data shows. You see, that sentence does 3 things. First, it demonstrates competence. You're not just using the tool, you're using it to produce an outcome. Number 2, it demonstrates leadership. You're not hiding your use of AI. You're showcasing your command of it. Third, and the most important, it positions you as the person who can lead the broader transformation. Companies don't let go of people who compress 3 days of work into 2 hours. They promote that person. They ask that person to teach the rest of the team. They build the next phase of the strategy. Now, here's a practical way to start. Okay, and this is something that you should do. Choose one recurring workflow in your role. It could be a weekly report, a monthly analysis, a client onboarding, any process that you do continuously, meaning it repeats all the time, whether it repeats monthly, weekly, whatever. I want you to map out every step and then ask which of these steps can be handled by AI. What is the handoff point where human judgment will take over? Where do I step in? You then build this hybrid workflow. It's going to be AI and you working as a team. Document it, run it for a couple of weeks, refine it, and then present it to your manager. You see, you have just made yourself the architect of a new operating model. That is a very difficult person to replace. Pillar 4, the relationship moat. The fourth and the final pillar is the one that most people overlook, and it's the one I feel most strongly about. You see, AI can draft a brief in seconds. It can analyze data sets in minutes, but it can't do one thing. It cannot sit across the table from a client during a client crisis meeting. It cannot make them feel like everything is under control and that everything's going to be okay. It cannot read the room in a meeting, and it doesn't know which battle to fight and which to concede. It cannot call a colleague or a bad day and ask how they're doing. You see, over 2,700 career endings, the pattern I saw was consistent. The people who survived the restructuring, they were the ones not only who kept their jobs, but often moved into bigger roles. The irony is that they were not necessarily the most technically skilled or the most talented. They were the ones with authentic relationships. People who knew their character, people who trusted their judgment, people who would pick up the phone and advocated for them when it really mattered. That is your moat. No algorithm can replace it. Relationships and networking is key. And here's the beautiful irony. You see, AI is going to give you the time to invest in exactly this. If AI handles the grunt work, the data crunching, the first drafts, the scheduling logistics, you now have hours back in your week. Use those hours to build the human layer, mentor someone, strengthen a client relationship, have a strategic discussion with a peer from another department. In fact, go to that networking event that you've always wanted to go to, but couldn't because you didn't have the time. But most importantly, use the time to study and improve on the new things that you have learned. As I've mentioned before, don't be a knower, be a learner. You see, the future belongs to people who can combine the leverage of AI with the irreplaceable power of human trust. That combination, okay, AI plus human trust, is your ultimate career insurance. It's very simple. And remember this: leveraging AI plus continuous learning plus human trust is equal to a fulfilling career. All right, let's bring this all together. I want to leave you with something specific, not a concept, a commitment. Starting tomorrow, I want you to spend 1 hour a day with these tools, not reading about it, not watching videos about it, but using them, hands on the keyboard, working on real problems. You don't want to use a keyboard? Use the audio option that is available on all of these platforms. So to help you further ensure that you do it, here are 5 simple day starter sequences to give you some structure. Day 1, take the single most tedious task that you did last week and see if AI can do it. Give it the context, give it the instructions, and evaluate the output that it gives you. If you have no idea how to start, there's a great video on how to write prompts that I will try to add in the show notes. Unfortunately, YouTube is a bit picky when you're adding links, etc. But if you can't find the link in the show notes, you can try the audio version of the podcast. Over there, I have not encountered problems with links. Worst case scenario, if you still can't find it, message me in the comments area or DM me and I will send you the link. This is probably the best video on how to write prompts that I have come across. Day number 2, take something more complex, a strategic question, a messy analysis, something you're not sure the AI can handle. Push it, take out your anger on it. Day number 3, do the 3-column audit, as we discussed in Pillar 1. Map your actual daily work against what's automatable. Day 4, identify one recurring workflow in your role and start sketching the hybrid model. What AI handles and where you step in. Day 5, share what you've learned. Tell a colleague, show your manager, start a conversation. If you want to talk about it, you can even put it up on LinkedIn. If you do this for the next 6 months, 1 hour a day, real work, not browsing, not watching videos, you will understand what's coming better than 99% of the people around you. You'll have hands-on knowledge that no article or podcast can give you. And most of all, you'll be positioned to lead instead of react when the wave hits your organization. The window for preparation is brief. It is measured in months, not years anymore. The person who moves now is the person who gets to shape what comes next. So I want to end where I started with those 2,700 people. Every one of them was talented. Every one of them worked hard, but too many of them believed that doing good work was enough. They trusted the system to look out for them, and the system didn't. It failed. I can't go back and give them this conversation, but I can give it to you. The intelligence explosion is not a threat if you're the one holding the match. It is your opportunity to work at a level you've never been able to reach. Here's your chance to offload the mechanical and invest in the meaningful. So if this episode was useful to you, please share it with one person you care about. Most people won't hear any of this until it's too late. You can be the reason someone you know gets a head start. I am Bryce Barrows, your future-ready architect. Just remember, the future belongs to those who are ready. Go be unstoppable. Thank you.